Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're breaking down a really fascinating April 29, 2026 report by Jeremy McDermott and Juliana Manjarrés over at Insight Crime. We're going to unpack the rapidly shifting global dynamics of the cocaine trade using their comprehensive 2025 seizure data. And honestly, this isn't just about dry law enforcement statistics. It's actually a super clear, real-time look into the logistics of a multi-billion-dollar illicit global enterprise. Okay. Let's just dive right in with this wild economic paradox that Insight Crime's data revealed right off the bat. They noted that the cocaine industry seems totally immune to normal market pressures. Think about it. Normally, if you flood any market with a product, the price drops, right? That's just basic supply and demand. But despite record high production and supply right now, prices are just not falling the way standard economics would predict. So the big question we really have to ask ourselves here is why? How exactly is this massive global network sustaining its value?
Well, to understand how cartels are sustaining this paradox, we've got a pretty clear roadmap for today's explainer. We're going to look at the global cocaine paradox itself, how traffickers are chasing higher global profits, their crazy evolving smuggling methods, where law enforcement is striking close to home, and finally, exactly what we can expect to see in 2026.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the global cocaine paradox and how it's immune to the market.
So here's the baseline for our analysis. Coca cultivation and cocaine production are absolutely soaring globally, and this surge is primarily being led by Colombia. Yet, like we mentioned, that expected price drop, it just isn't happening. If you have an overabundance of supply in a normal market, prices crash. But drug cartels aren't operating like a local farmer's market, right? They're operating like highly sophisticated multinational conglomerates. So instead of slashing prices in saturated areas, they're engineering a massive shift in exactly how and where their product is being sold around the world.
Moving on to Section 2, chasing higher global profits by expanding the market.
As traditional markets like the United States become supersaturated, drug traffickers are aggressively, and I mean aggressively, expanding into new territories. Just look at the staggering year-over-year seizure increases from 2025. South Korea saw overall seizures jump an unbelievable 300%. That actually included their biggest cocaine seizure ever, hitting 2 tons in a single April bust. Down in Australia, they registered 7.8 tons of seized cocaine, which is a 40% jump from the previous year. What we're watching in real time is cartels aggressively building out these highly lucrative new markets in East Asia and Oceania.
Now, the sheer economic incentive behind this massive geographic pivot is honestly mind-blowing. $200,000. That is how much cartels can charge for a single kilogram of cocaine in Asia. Just to put that into perspective for a second, the average wholesale price in the heavily saturated U.S. market is only around $20,000. In Europe, it's about $30,000. I mean, do the math. Why would you fight tooth and nail over a $20,000 market when you can take the exact same product across the Pacific and literally multiply your revenue by 10?
But hey, we definitely can't ignore what's happening right across the Atlantic. Europe has officially become the largest cocaine market in the entire world, and it is still expanding. France registered a 49% rise in seizures, and Belgium saw a 25% growth. And it's not just border seizures we're talking about. The European Union Drugs Agency actually reported a 22% increase in cocaine residue and wastewater across selected cities. This huge boom is heavily driven by the growing involvement of European mafias. They aren't just importing to Europe anymore. They are actively managing distribution on a worldwide scale.
Which brings us to Section 3, evolving smuggling and transportation, the cartel innovation.
To actually supply these rapidly expanding global markets, traffickers are being forced to radically evolve their transportation methods. They have to bypass increasingly improved port security and advanced container scanning. So we're witnessing a clear technological leap. For years, the absolute go-to method was the go-fast boat, basically speedboats that could just outrun the authorities. But as global port security and radar systems have leveled up, those boats have become highly trackable liabilities. So what do the cartels do? They pivot hard to highly sophisticated, evolving methods. We're talking specifically about semi-submersibles, often called narco-subs, and some really advanced chemical disguises.
And the really crucial point here is the rapidly expanding range of these narco-subs. Let's look at some of the discoveries in 2025 alone. The Portuguese Navy intercepted a massive 6.5-ton shipment in a sub way out south of the Azores. But this stealth tech isn't just for reaching Europe anymore. At least 5 narco-subs were discovered all the way around the Solomon Islands in Oceania. This completely proves that technological advances are giving these stealth vessels the incredible range required to reach those ultra-high-paying $200,000 per kilo markets all the way out in the Pacific.
But it's not just about upgrading their vessels. Cartels are literally chemically disguising their product to trick X-rays and scanners at major ports. Get this, in November 2025, authorities in the Colombian port of Buenaventura made a truly shocking discovery. They found 14 tons of cocaine that had been chemically altered and completely mixed into construction-grade gypsum powder. I mean, we're talking about a level of industrial chemistry specifically designed to hide the product right out in the open.
All right, Section 4, striking close to home, the law enforcement response.
So, with smuggling technology advancing this rapidly, the data tells a really clear story about interdiction efforts. The most massive, multi-ton seizures are actually occurring right near the South American source countries. The goal is to hit them before the shipments even have a chance to disperse into the wider ocean. We just mentioned those 14 tons in Buenaventura, Colombia. Additionally, Panama intercepted an incredible 13.5 tons on a single tugboat that had just left Colombian waters. The strategy for law enforcement is crystal clear. You absolutely have to strike close to home. You have to cut off the head of the snake before these massive shipments can splinter off into a fleet of those elusive narco subs.
Finally, let's wrap things up with Section 5, what to expect next, the 2026 forecast.
Look, this cat-and-mouse game is only accelerating. Due to continued United States missile strikes on traditional go-fast boats, those older vessels are quickly becoming obsolete. Instead, Insight Crime expects cartels to just blend in by using standard commercial fishing vessels. Furthermore, as authorities get better and better at finding manned narco subs, the expectation is that cartels will start deploying larger, remotely controlled unmanned subs. And finally, to combat upgraded port scanners, the use of chemical camouflage, literally transforming cocaine into liquids or mixing it seamlessly with organic matter, is expected to dramatically increase.
As we close out this explainer, we're really left to wonder, can law enforcement realistically keep up with a criminal enterprise operating with the immense resources, agility, and pure innovation of a global tech giant? Seriously, when a cartel stands to make $200,000 per kilo, their budget for research and development is practically limitless. What you should ultimately take away from all this data is that the modern cocaine trade is no longer just a traditional law enforcement issue. It's a high-tech, global logistical arms race. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next explainer.